my name's Adele Sleasis. I'm the Visual Arts Curator at The Mill, a multidisciplinary art space based in Ghana Yatta, Adelaide. I'm here with artist Thomas Readett, and today we're going to be having a bit of a chat about his exhibition, Complexities. So would you like to start by giving us a bit of an intro to yourself and your practice?
Yeah, so my name's Thomas Readett. I'm primarily a painter, contemporary artist from Adelaide, South Australia, Nurrungeri descendant. And I've been lucky enough to live my whole life on Ghana country. I guess my practice kind of revolves around portraiture and painting in monochrome, in black and white. So a lot of my paintings, I guess, derive from ideas of mental health and lived experiences. And so they're normally a direct self-expression or some sort of story that derives from my lived experiences as a human. And so a lot of it can be quite dark, but I guess it's good for me because I look at painting as a therapy. And so when I'm painting, I'm literally kind of expressing those sorts of thoughts and ideas onto canvas and getting it out of my head. I think that sort of sums up my practice.
Yeah, great. Yeah. What I really liked about the work that you're making for Complexities is this idea that you're using self-portraiture and putting yourself into the work, but asking audiences to see themselves within that. So you're opening up for them to be able to have their own perceptions of the work and that sort of thing. So I wondered if you could talk a little bit about how you'd like audiences to come into the space and see themselves within your self-portraiture.
Yeah, I guess it's this whole process has been really great for me in terms of Complexities and working with you guys and I guess experimenting, and all of this work is quite experimental. And so I think creating this three-dimensional object has been a great process. But I think that opening the conversation to the broader public to, I guess, explore themes and ideas that I explore in my work is, I think, a way for me to kind of almost supply some sort of, platform for people to kind of, talk about topics and have discussions that they may not be comfortable to have, with people or even by themselves, but, provide that area and that space to have that kind of discussion. Artwork is a great vehicle for that. I think using self-portraits is a really nice thing for a few different reasons, not just to paint my own face because I've done it quite a lot and it does get boring, but I think it's good because I think for me it's about self-reflection as well, and so painting a self-portrait can be quite challenging and quite confronting for a lot of people, but I think it is a therapeutic kind of process to elaborate on those sorts of things. And I tend to make my work, I guess, open and broad enough that people, that it is accessible for a lot of different audiences. And I want my work to be accessible to everybody. So, so it's just open enough and, I guess, general enough that people can connect with it and apply their own meanings and stories to it.
And I guess, in a way, by inserting yourself into the work as well, you're creating this vulnerability of yourself, which is so generous and allows people to step into this like empathetic space where they can see themselves in you, but also care for you as you're working through some of these ideas and themes. And that's really nice.
Yeah.
You mentioned that sometimes the work can get a little bit darker. How do you balance that in the space?
Yeah, I guess for me, art has always been something I've always done, and I've been a drawer for as long as I can remember. But I think as I've gotten older and been through more things and, I think everybody can relate to having some sort of lived experience. And you have to learn to deal with certain things that you do go through. And I think art has been that thing for me. It's about surviving, and it's, like I said, like a therapy. And I think, it's not all about painting pretty flowers and, those sorts of things. And so to be able to paint about those things for me is talking about those things. And for me, talking is, a really good thing to do, just to get things out in the open. But I hope that kind of answers your question.
I think there's the way that we process things that we're going through with our identity, using art to do that just gives another language to the way that you work through those things. So it's I can see that audiences will be able to see themselves in that process as well. So let's talk a little bit about the materiality of the work that you're making. You're bringing this amazing Rubik's Cube into the space for Complexities. So tell us a little bit about how you came to this idea of building a Rubik's Cube, and then what it looks like, and how people will interact with it.
Yeah, I guess it sort of started out as a bit of a simple idea, but as the show title infers, it has become quite complex. But I think for me, I was at the point of my life where I was kind of dealing with a lot of different things and trying to talk about a lot of different things and juggle a lot of different things and wearing a lot of different hats. And so I felt like my head was a little bit twisted up and a little bit all over the shop. And so when I had that first initial discussion with you about the show, I was trying to think about self-portraiture and pushing that into a different kind of realm. And so I guess I thought about the Rubik's Cube and obviously how it has 6 different planes, and obviously, when it's all twisted up, and it's quite hard to kind of try and find the original image, the original colour. And so I thought, how cool would it be if there was, all these different kind of portraits and kind of all intertwined. And I think, that idea of the Rubik's Cube is I guess a direct kind of homage to where my head was at, as crazy as that sounds. But I think sort of actually beginning to build it. So I started off with a few drawings and thought this might work, I'm not sure. And instead of photoshopping things together and planning it out, like I'm normally quite, have an idea of exactly how the work's going to look at the end, which this has been completely different for that process, because I started building the cube and I did all of the sort of, I guess, abstract kind of underpainting similar to this sort of style of working all over the whole object before I actually knew what my reference images were kind of going to look like, before I even took the reference images. So it was quite exciting for me, but also kind of scary, moving into that 3-dimensional space. And once the images were on there, it's still, I had to paint all of them exactly as one whole image on each side before I could obviously twist and manipulate the object. And so even until that day, which was probably about last week, where I actually twisted it for the first time, I had no idea how it was going to look in terms of that twisting. So it's been a really cool process.
It sounds interesting. We at the Mill, we're really interested in how artists make their work and the process that they go through, and sharing that with audiences. So sounds like you've changed things up a little bit for this, and pushing your work into that 3D space is really interesting as well. But also interesting to think about conceptually that there are these 6 portraits that are then interchangeable, and how you can interpret that as, yourself being a person full of multitudes, and that each of those parts relates to the other.
Yeah, definitely.
So will people be able to manipulate it in the space?
Unfortunately not. That was definitely in my head. I was really hoping I could pull that off, or even have some sort of mechanical component that slowly sort of moved it. Unfortunately, it only does twist all horizontally, because I can build things, but I'm not an engineer. I think I think it's cool because no matter how it's displayed, it will still be able to be displayed in so many different ways. So you'll only see one sort of, I guess, mode of that. Which is an interesting thing in itself. But I think I would love for it to be able to be manipulated by the audience at some point, because I think that would make it a lot more funner, I think.
Yeah, very cool. Maybe that's a public art project for the future.
Yeah, playground or something.
Maybe you can tell us a little bit about the process that you go through to build up each of the portraits as well. So I know that you have been trained as a painter.
Yep.
And you've always done drawing, but also there's the influence of street art and aerosol and that sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess the street art kind of vibe is still very recent. I did my first mural in 2017, which was a really cool experience. I applied for a Wonderwalls festival with a whole heap of oil paintings and just sent that in. And then I got accepted and I was like, oh, now what do I do? Because I can't paint oil paints outside. So, which was a really cool learning curve for me. So to be able to learn spray painting, but I ended up actually working on the project with an old friend, Shane Cook. We both went to high school together and then sort of went different paths, and then we literally had a wall next to each other on this festival, which was really great. So he showed me a few things on the cans, and then the rest is history. So I've just been playing around with the aerosol cans, and I think I like including them in more kind of canvas and board work, because I think the way that the tones are all isolated, so obviously with oil paints, you have to mix all of your different tones and mix all of your different greys and things like that. Whereas when you buy the aerosols, you've got, 10 different shades of grey already in a can. And so that layering process for me is, it's a lot easier, and it's quite nice to build it up. So I'll normally build up a portrait, I'll paint the whole thing one shade of grey, and then come back over with the next tone, and then the next tone, and then the next tone. So it's all kind of building up in literally 10 different layers or so. Yeah, which is really cool. And so I guess then the oil paint comes last, where I'll sort of bring that in over the top, and play around with extra highlights and, solvents and things like that. So it's a lot of sort of push and pull, but so there's a bit of exterior paint as well. So I sort of, with all of these objects, I rolled them all on first, then hit them with the aerosol, then a little bit of drawing just to sort of refine, then aerosol again, and then probably aerosol again for another 7 layers, and then then with the oil paint. So which is cool, because then you can come back in with the brush and make everything a lot sharper, because with the aerosol you can get quite sharp lines, but it still tends to have a little bit of a fuzzy sort of edge. So that's kind of the process. But there's a lot of and with this one especially too, there's a lot of I guess watered down acrylic paints, which is fun because that was with a spray bottle, just lots and lots of layers, and then pretty much all of it comes off within the first 10 minutes or so, and then so you wait for that to dry and then go back in. I've been really enjoying that process of just adding, taking, and just I guess in a way almost just attacking the artwork with paint has been a really fun process.
I like that idea that you came to the aerosol via oil paint.
Yeah, I haven't tagged anything. A little bit of a different route.
Yeah, definitely. And maybe all of your works are in this black and white monochrome, lots of shades of grey. What is the reason that you like to work in this restricted palette?
I guess I got to a point in my practice, obviously when I graduated at Adelaide Central School of Art, I was really interested in tonal realism. So I was really interested in naturalistic painting, mixing skin tones and those sorts of things. But then I kind of got to a point where, I've learned all the rules, and then I was like, how can I kind of adjust it or break the rules to suit what I need to do with my work conceptually, I guess, and ended up sort of just painting in, monochrome. There's a technique with oil painting which is called grisil, which is basically monochrome painting. So you just do it as an underpainting and then come back in over it with mixed flesh tones. But I tend to, I just stop at that underpainting stage, I guess. And I try to push the monochrome as far as I can to, I guess for me it's important because a lot of the time I paint from photos. So it's really important for me to know when to drop that photo and then to create the painting for what the painting needs to be. And so the reference image plays a certain part technically until I need to do something conceptually, and then that's where for me the fun begins. To tell so many stories without overcomplicating it with lots of different colours and things. Lots of people probably just think I'm lazy and can't be bothered adding colours, but I really enjoy painting in monochrome. I think it just does something for me, and I really enjoy it. So I'm interested in pushing it as far as I possibly can before I have to add any colours and things back in. And I still use colours every now and then. I just don't post them on social media much.
They're so layered as well. So it doesn't feel like they are necessarily like missing the element of colour. It feels very stylised. And I guess when you're also bringing in those complex layers of meaning into your work as well. Yeah.